Being in a toxic relationship is like walking into a room that stinks. If you stay in the room, the smell goes away. Because you're always accommodating and you're always trying to keep them happy, things that might have felt odd to you in the beginning, the longer you're in it, it doesn't seem odd anymore. If you get up in the morning and they call you a name for the first time ever, you are going to get upset. Okay, if you get up 15 mornings in a row and they call you the same name, do you think you're going to have the same upset reaction on the 15th day?
Nope.
That's the first step. You have to realize once it becomes normal, you don't realize it's not normal, it's toxic.
The Love and Order Podcast with your host, LawyerLimor.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed on this podcast are not legal advice that can be relied on. They are based solely on the limited information provided. These opinions do not create any attorney-client relationship. Those seeking legal advice should contact an attorney in the appropriate jurisdiction and practice area.
I am so excited about today's guest, Dr. Heidi Brocke. She is the only person on earth who I think has no idea what is going on with the cast of Vanderpump Rules. And to be honest with you, to be a toxic relationship and healing specialist, I appreciate that. I love that. I am so glad to have you, Dr. Heidi. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. And you know what? Now that you say that, I didn't have time to even look that up today. And now that you say it, I'm guessing it's some type of relationship that I would have been involved in helping. I don't watch any of the movies about it. I don't do any of that because in my mind, I already lived that. The last thing I need to do is watch it. And I am very good at predicting what's coming next. So it drives me crazy to watch it. But I promised myself and I put it on my list. I'll look it up just for you.
Oh, I'm going to give you the relevant information because I just want your opinion about society and relationships in general. So don't even worry about what you know and don't know about that because that's not the topic today. The topic today is how did you get into this line of work and what is your background? What is your career trajectory? What did it look like?
So everybody sees me as, now everybody sees me as Dr. Heidi. Nobody knows my last name. I always say it's because I can't pick which one I want. So I just leave it off. And now everybody knows me as the toxic relationship awareness and healing specialist. I am not a licensed mental health professional. I always make that very clear because anything that you hear me say is from my experience or my experience working with people that are going through this type of thing. And it's my opinion, my thoughts, my ideas on stuff. And so I never want anybody to replace me with their mental health care professional. What I do different than a mental health care professional is I don't diagnose, I don't treat, I do a ton of education. The reason I do education is my background. I am a chiropractor acupuncturist. I was in healthcare for 25 years. That's when you say, you look way too young to have.
You know what I was thinking of, Dr. Heidi? I was thinking because on YouTube, we have this is not legal advice banner everywhere. And I'm thinking this episode also needs, this is not medical advice. So everyone understands what we're doing here. And the fact that we look the same age, I really wish I was, in the healthcare industry for decades, but here we are, just a decade of law.
Well, and of course I do look my age. I just always say that's when you're supposed to say this. But yes, I spent 25 years in chiropractic, acupuncture, and nutrition. And now I help people learn about the situations that is really going on in a relationship that may not be healthy for them. Of course, then everybody goes, how did you get from that to this? 14 years of my life, I was in a relationship that I knew didn't feel right. I couldn't put my finger on it. I wasn't sure. I left 6 times. I finally left for the last time on the 7th. I was raising 2 daughters in it. We had a practice together. Our life was completely intertwined. So I felt very stuck. And I ended up running away. I ended up running away from him after I had already been divorced for 2 years. And when I say that, people immediately think, oh, it's a huge domestic violence situation. Okay. It did get that way towards the end when I started standing up for myself. But the first 12 years was him telling me, well, you need to be a better wife. Well, I always wanted to marry a blonde. Well, I think you need to work harder at this. And if you would just try harder, and if you would just, and I'd never been a wife before. So here I go on the treadmill of, okay, I'll fix it. And so I didn't really realize, what it was. And obviously I have a doctor's degree, so I'm way too smart to be in anything that's abusive. So I always downplayed that. I made excuses. I gave the benefit of the doubt and tried to hold the family unit together. And, I was raised in a Christian household. So I had the marriage vows, and I'm the only one in my family that's now divorced and has kids that have tattoos and, has a drink after work. And so I had a lot of things where I felt like, okay, but these people think I should do this, and he thinks I should do this, and I think I should do this, but it doesn't really matter what I think because I need to make sure I keep all these other people happy. And as I got more and more educated on what it was, still not thinking it was an emotionally abusive type relationship, I started standing up for myself. It started escalating. It started getting worse. And I finally, this is a long story short, I finally just met the accountant at my office, and I signed my half of the practice over, and I signed my patients over, and I signed my accounts receivable over. I let him keep all but one piece of property. I left everything that I had worked for. I basically packed up my clothes and my decorations, and I left. And I knew that if I tried to take my kids with me, it was going to be an awful fight. Like I said, we had already been divorced for 2 years, and I was so excited to have the divorce papers in my hand because I thought, oh, finally. And nothing changed. There was not one thing that changed, except now we had 2 houses on the same property. And now he could have girlfriends that wasn't behind my back because, of course, we were divorced. But he kept very close tabs on me, and the money still all filtered through the business. So I didn't really want for anything, but I didn't have access to use money. He had agreed to 50-50 in the divorce papers, refused to sign a parenting plan. Wow. And I knew when I left, if I didn't leave, I was in danger for my life. It was getting to where I was standing up for myself enough that it had escalated, that I was afraid that something bad would happen in a fit of rage. Right. Wow. And so when I signed everything over and I left, I also left my 2 daughters at 11 and 13, thinking I could fall back on the divorce papers, say 50-50. And he kept my daughters from me for almost 5 years. So, wow. Yeah. And I say that I don't want anybody listening to feel sorry for me. We are all fine. They also, my girls were tough. My ultimate decision in that was, if this is the example of a mom they have, they don't have an example. I stayed and went back thinking I was protecting them. And one day I realized I'm here, but I can't protect them. I can't protect me. I can't protect them. And I wanted to be able to be the example and to be able to take care of them if they ever needed me in the future. And the other thing I realized, my girls had been in it as long as I had. And I kept making excuses for his behavior, covering up stuff. And I thought, if I keep doing this, they are not going to understand what they've been in. And so because I knew they could take care of themselves, I wanted them to be able to see his true colors so that when they were 18, they could make the decision that was best for them on the relationship they had. And I left them when they were 11 and 13, and they also ran away when they were 17 and 19.
Wow.
And, yes. And, those 5 years were the worst years of my life. And now I'm sure the listeners are going, well, what was the matter with you? You left him and you didn't take him back to court. And I spent 14 years fighting with the man, fighting over everything from money to, where the missing sock was. And I literally could not make myself fight one more second. They are 25 and 27 now, and they're both doing fine. One of them has not spoken to her father in almost 6 years. The other one knows exactly how to operate the relationship, so she keeps herself safe. So even though it was the worst time in my life, good things came out of it. And of course, I was forced to find myself and heal. But I relocated 4 hours away, and I had to start a new practice because I had no income. And I did not talk about, nobody that's in an emotionally abusive relationship talks about it when they're in it. Nobody understands it unless they've been through it. And if, the toxic personality finds out you're talking about it, then there's conflict. So I never really felt like I could tell people what was going on when I was in it. And then when I moved, of course, I'm in a new place. I'm trying to start a business. I'm trying to make new friends. I'm trying to build a new life. How am I supposed to explain that I'm a mom that left her daughters 4 hours away? So I didn't talk about it. You also carry shame because the minute somebody thinks that you've been in that situation, they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. And so I started a new chiropractic office. And as you know, because I know that you have a professional job as well, or you used to, do you still practice?
Oh no, I'm still a family law attorney. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, when you get in those certain, this is going to sound so bad, but everybody goes through burnouts in their job.
Of course.
Okay. So by this time I'd been adjusting people for 20 years, and I was good at it, and I loved seeing my patients, and I didn't mind being a chiropractor, whatever. But I felt myself literally, when they would come in the room, I felt myself going, yeah, whatever, get on the table. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I can adjust people in the dark with my eyes shut. Just
right. At that point, yes.
Yeah, call me if you need me. And so I had learned that when I start getting like that, I'm not doing my patients any good, obviously. And I always know I need to change something. That means my life's getting stale. I need to do something. And so I started throwing women's retreats on making yourself a priority, because I was never a priority in that relationship. And by the second retreat, I all of a sudden just accidentally started using examples from my former life. And I remember when the first one fell out of my mouth, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that. Well, almost every single woman that was coming to those retreats was coming out of some type of toxic or emotionally abusive relationship. And that's when I went, oh, I think I'm getting what's happening here. And I hired a business coach because I didn't know how to market. Chiropractors don't market. They sit in their office, and when somebody has a car wreck, they show up. Right?
Right.
And so I thought, I don't know how to do any of this. And so this is so funny too, because I said, I really think I want to start coaching. And she said, okay, if you're going to coach, you need a niche, because everybody and their grandma is coaching right now. So you're going to have something. And so she gave me like 3 days to get back to her. And this was the only thing I could think of other than healthcare. And I was, get
over it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I told her this, and she goes, that's exactly what you're coaching in. And I remember going, absolutely not. I am not doing that. And she goes, well, I think you should try it. And I'm thinking, you clearly haven't been in one. But I did. I threw some, character traits of a toxic personality or some emotional abuse stuff up on my Facebook page, and my Facebook page doubled in like a month. Now my Facebook page isn't huge. So, but to me, I was like,
sure, still. Mm-hmm.
And so I really just started thinking about it. And the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to think about it. And all I could think about was this. I was 24 hours thinking about doing this. And that was 7 years ago.
Wow.
So I've been doing toxic relationship awareness and healing. Why I call it that is, when you're in the relationships, you don't have time to think about anything except what are they saying or what are they doing. So I really dug into the motivation, and I teach people to see the world through the toxic person's eyes and what motivates their behavior, so they can make the best decision for them.
I commend you, because Dr. Heidi, there are so many clients I see who are going through what you went through. Something similar. Obviously, everyone's story is different. Everyone's experience is different, but they're going through it. They don't know what to do. They don't understand that sometimes time for yourself can make you a better role model for your children, a better partner to your partner, a better you to you, right? They don't understand that. And like you said, there's a lot of shame in being, quote unquote, a non-custodial parent for however temporary period of time.
Mhm.
And, it's one of those where anytime I see a parent do that for themselves, I really admire them because it is rough. It is tough. 2 daughters, a mom separating herself from 2 of the loves of her life to give them a better life in the future. Oh my God. It sounds like you did everything right, though. It sounds like this was in the cards for you. And I was on your page earlier and I saw the 10 critical questions to ask an attorney when you're going through a divorce. I think it was with a toxic person or whatever it was. And I downloaded them and I'm going to probably make a TikTok on them and I'll credit you because I think it's so important to, regular people who have been through it, hearing the questions, from an attorney, fine, whatever. But if you haven't been through these experiences, you have no idea what to look for. And, earlier in the beginning, you said something about he would just say, oh, I really like blondes. Oh, you don't know how to be a good wife. And that, your podcast is called, you have a podcast and it's called, It's Not Normal, It's Toxic. I can't think of a better title for the thing that for what you bring to the world and the education you present to people. Because I think some people, they throw the word toxic around, they throw the word narcissist around. And I think that some people also think that only exists in romantic relationships, but it can exist in all sorts of relationships. So your work in identifying and healing, which I assume you also went through a journey with your 2 daughters when you came back together and reconnected. So can you tell our listeners, how do you identify a toxic relationship? What is it?
Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about the word toxic.
Yes.
Toxic is not a diagnosis. I chose the word toxic because it's a blanket phrase. Toxic is an adjective that describes any relationship in the status that it's in that may be unhealthy for you mentally, physically, or emotionally. Okay. And when I started, I really thought I was going to help females dealing with toxic spouses. Okay. 7 years into this, I have dealt with that. I have dealt with friendships that are unhealthy. I have dealt with family situations that are unhealthy. I have dealt with coworker situations that are unhealthy because and I'll talk about this in a little bit. All the toxic personalities are motivated by the same thing. So once you understand it, you can handle them all the same. So I use toxic because when I was in that relationship, I never was sitting in front of the computer Googling emotional abuse. I wasn't Googling toxic relationship and I wasn't Googling narcissist. Okay. I was Googling how to be a better wife, how to fix my relationship. Because if a lot of people really, really think that we justify being in an emotionally abusive relationship by going, well, at least I don't have it as bad as Susan. She has bruises on herself all the time. So then we go, well, then it can't be abusive. So it must be me and I must need to fix it. And the thing that I love about the word toxic, and I'm loving it less and less. The thing that I love about the word toxic is because it covers anything. We know that if you think somebody's toxic, they don't have to fit into a diagnosis. However, I chose this word before it was all over social media. And now how it's presented on social media, either a person is toxic or a person is not. And it makes you assume it's a diagnosis. Okay. And in reality, and this is what everyone misses, and this is basically what I teach. What people don't understand is not all people are toxic to everyone. Okay. Whereas if somebody has a diagnosis, they have that diagnosis congruently through everything, right? We are the ones that get to decide who in our life is healthy and who in our life isn't. Because the toxic relationship type things that I deal with, and I deal with some of them that have diagnosis. I guess my point is I like the blanket phrase, because when we start Googling and we start thinking, okay, maybe this is emotional abuse, or maybe this is narcissism, or maybe this is bipolar, then we use it for validation, and we want them to check all the boxes. So if they don't check all the boxes, then we're digging for a different diagnosis, because we really want to know that they have something. And when you realize that you're the one that gets to decide who's toxic and who's not, it doesn't matter if they have a diagnosis.
Right.
Whether they do or not, does it make the relationship any healthier for you? And that's what I teach. For validation, digging around to that information is good, because you realize it's not you.
Right. Yes.
But the people that step into these type of relationships have a certain personality. And you are in a service-oriented industry. I was in healthcare. Okay. I'm not bragging. This is just how I'm made. I'm the kind, caring, compromiser, giver, supporter, peacekeeper, conflict avoider. That is my personality. I'm going to change my plans. I'm going to make sure everybody in my world is okay today. I'm not getting up going, oh, I'm so glad I have an 8 a.m. pedicure. I'm getting up, I'm going to have to cancel the pedicure that's been on the schedule for 8 months because somebody needs me. Right. And again, I think we'll get to this. The motivation that the toxic person has needs that emotionally wired personality in order to get it. So my type of personality is a target for the toxic personality. So the other thing I have to do is, I know that most of my clients have the same personality as me. My healthcare providers, therapists, counselors, beauticians, family law attorneys, I must say, because you stepped into family law because you want to help, you want to support, you want to make things better for the family, right? Okay. We are also the personality that is going to give the toxic personality exactly what they need. So moving forward, I have to make sure that they know how to take care of themselves moving forward, because whoever they came to me about is not the last toxic personality that's going to show up in their life. And so I am adamant on making sure they see the world not through the toxic person's eyes, because we're emotionally wired and we only see the world through emotion. So I remember in my former marriage, I was literally looking at him 8 times a day going, how come you can't just act normal? Well, it's because I only see the world through the way I see it.
Yes.
And so then I would think, okay, well, if I just explain it, if I just tell him how he hurt my feelings, and I just explain to him how I need him to change, and I need him to be kinder and put me first. And, well, we've done that 82 times, but I try it 83 times, and I wear the right color, and I choose the right tone of voice, and I pick the right time, and I've got the floor mopped, and okay, now I can bring it up. And for some reason, we think if we keep explaining and we keep defining and using the right terms, that some morning they're going to wake up and act like us,
Right.
And the truth is they are wired completely different than us. And the reason we don't think they're acting normal is because that's not how an emotionally wired person would act. However, their personality, they are acting completely normal. So I defend the toxic personality quite a bit. And some people don't like that. Some people want to remove every toxic person from the planet because they're monsters. I don't see it that way, because they didn't ask to be like this. They developed this type of personality out of an upbringing, or out of a diagnosis, or out of an addiction, maybe. And they've learned to get what they need from other people because that's how they survived. And you take our type of personality and we put it with that type of personality, and it is a very off balance off balance thing, because we're givers and they're takers. And eventually, the whole thing is going to tip over.
Wow.
And so because we only see it through the emotional wired eyes, when I decided to do this, I went back and I literally had to pull all that shit. Is it okay to swear on your podcast?
Please do.
My dad, if you listen to this, I swear. But we have to learn to pull all that shit out from underneath the rug, because when we're living in it, we have to pretend that it didn't happen because we have to make it through the next day. So I pulled all that crap out and I started looking at it. And instead of saying, oh, he did this or he said this, I started digging into what motivated it. And once you understand how they see the world, most people go, you've got to be kidding me. This is so easy. And some of my clients have been living in these relationships for 45 years. And once they can see it, they can't unsee it. And they're like, what? You mean I missed this?
Wow. So so my mind is blown, because you are coming at this from such an empathetic perspective. It's to me, it seems like the angle for all of this, to be able to go on the healing journey, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to understand that you're the vulnerable person dealing with someone who has certain, I'm going to say traits, because the way I understand it is, it's not that they are a toxic person. It's that the relationship with you and them is toxic, right? They are toxic to you, but they're not necessarily just toxic to every person that they meet, right? The dynamic is different. So
this would include, I don't love throwing the word narcissist around.
Same.
Right.
Yes.
And I'll tell you the reason is because when I was in healthcare in the 90s, everybody had fibromyalgia. And in the 2000s, everybody was gluten intolerant. And right now, everybody's a narcissist, right?
Dr. Heidi, 5-10 years ago, everyone was divorcing was bipolar.
Yes.
And now they're all narcissists.
So it's just the trigger word.
Yes.
And the thing that I make sure that I get across, narcissistic personality disorder is a diagnosis.
Right.
And I think it's disrespectful to that sad diagnosis by calling them narcs or calling them narcissists or dumping everybody in this bucket. Right. Because again, they were created this way for whatever reason. And so I really avoid the word narcissist again, because a narcissist, if they are still going to be toxic if you are the empathetic personality.
Right. And so is it that you cannot control this other person, so the healing starts with you?
Yes. Well, again, that is why I am so adamant, because our personality is always going to give. We're always going to compromise. The toxic personality is going to continually. Okay, let me back up just a little bit. Toxic can be on any scale of extreme. Okay. It could be the bully on the playground, all the way up to the man that I ran away from, to the things you're seeing on Netflix. But what drives the toxic personality is identical, regardless of the extremeness, regardless of the diagnosis, regardless of their upbringing, regardless of an addiction, if an addiction would be causing the toxic behavior. Okay. And once you understand that, it takes the fear away. It takes their power away. It takes all of that away. Okay. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yes.
Tell me about a time in your life when you felt super secure in yourself and you were like, oh my gosh, I love my life. It's going exactly the way I want.
I mean, almost never. Maybe like I have a minute every week where I feel that way.
Okay, let's take the minute. Let's take the minute in the week that you feel that way. What happens right before you feel that way?
Wanting to give gratitude, or just feeling kind of more positive than usual.
Okay. So to get people to understand how the dynamic works is, we know that our self-security has to come from within ourselves.
Yes.
You feel the most positive about yourself when you are investing in yourself. It's when
Yes.
your career is going well, you have a good group of friends, you're working out every day, you're eating well, you've got this cute little house and you've put your own decorations in and you're super proud of that, right? It makes you feel rewarded and like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay, because all of that stuff is an investment. And a perfect example of that is on January 2, we all get on the scale. Right? And there's that freaking 7 pounds that we swore we weren't going to gain over the holidays. And how do we feel about ourselves?
Like poop.
Yeah. We feel awful. We think we look awful. Our clothes don't fit. We think other people think we look awful. And we just don't feel comfortable in our skin and we get very insecure. Okay. But we take 2 weeks, we clean up our eating, we walk every day and we lose 7 pounds. How do you feel about yourself now?
Great.
Right. Because you just invested in yourself and you are proud of that. So you feel secure. Okay. We know that we can do that. And I, because of some post-trauma stuff, will still, after 15 years, go through some levels of insecurity. But over the last couple of years, now I've figured it out. If I start feeling off of balance, I start looking at the categories of my life and I go, okay, which ones are, oh, you're not working out. Oh, you are not investing in your friendships. You're not getting your sleep. You're not putting into your bit. Oh, and then what happens? I start feeling insecure. And then I wonder why my husband's crabby when he comes home from work. What did I do?
Ugh.
And he's like, oh no, somebody at work just pissed me off. It has nothing to do with you. But when I'm feeling insecure, I start wondering why others are making me feel insecure. I've put that together through my healing journey has been a long one and a frustrating one.
Right.
But that being said, we know that our self-security comes from within ourselves. And this is, I'm obviously briefing all this. Usually the toxic personality does not have the ability to do that. Okay. It doesn't matter how much they put into their own life. Doesn't matter how much money they have, how many friends they have, what job title they have, what great shape they're in. It's never enough to make them feel secure in themselves. Okay.
Wow. Wait, so do I have a toxic personality?
First of all, everybody has the capability of being toxic. Okay. We all have toxic traits.
Okay. That's fair. That is very fair. Yes.
Now, the difference is because of the insecurity, the toxic person, because they can't put enough into their own life, they have to place people strategically in their life that give them the things that they feel secure with. Okay. And those are things like the feeling of control, the feeling of power, admiration, attention. Okay. If you were a personality that wanted control, wanted power, was seeking attention, what type of personality would you look for?
Someone who gives you those things, who gives you the attention, who gives you the power. Yeah.
Yeah. The giver, the supporter, the conflict avoider, the peacekeeper, right? And so when I teach people this, everything that the toxic personality says or does can be tracked back through one of those 4 things up to security in themselves. Now, the problem is if we're empathetic and we're caring and we're a healthcare provider and we know that they're insecure, there's also a reason that they're insecure. It could be a traumatic upbringing. It could be a diagnosis. It could be an addiction. And then what do? We feel sorry for them.
Oh my God. Yes, that is exactly what happened.
Yeah. So then that's okay. I'll support you. I'll fix it. I'll make sure that you're deserving of love and I'll prove to you. And there we go. Right. Well, they're only in a relationship with you because they've figured out your personality is going to do that. Because if they start a relationship with a personality that's more like theirs, they'll figure out very quickly they're not going to get what they need. And that relationship won't go very far. So if the listeners are questioning, how did I end up in this? Or I know this is emotionally abusive, or I know that this isn't healthy. If you're in the life of a toxic person, you are there to supply them with the things they need to feel secure. Because if you weren't supplying them, you would not be in their life at any significant level because they would have no use for you.
Wow. Wow. Is that why sometimes you hear people say that personality is sometimes not interested in someone who's too smart? right? Even though obviously we're all smart, us as givers, obviously we're extremely smart, not being humble. But they often say like you're too smart for that person. That's why they're not interested.
Okay. So if we take that and we put it into those 4 things, okay, they want power and control. So if they sense that somebody's going to be more intelligent or to be able to, be smarter than them in trivia, okay, that makes them feel insecure. So they're going to steer away from that because their 100% goal every day when they get up, they basically get up and they say, how am I going to feel secure today? And they look at the people in their life. It could be their spouse. It could be their kids. It could be their friends, their coworkers. The people that are in their life will supply them with those 4 things. Okay. You and I get up in the morning and our feet are on fire before they hit the floor because, we forgot to do notes on this client and we forgot to return this phone call and we got 17 kids to get ready and we volunteered to make brownies in the middle of the night because it was the only time we had, we get up and we make sure everybody in our world's going to be okay today. And when they get up and go, how am I going to feel secure today? And you're the one standing there, you're responsible for supplying them. So let's just say some of the things that you would see in a toxic relationship would be, and in my programs, I teach 21 character traits of the toxic person. Okay. Character traits. Some people call them red flags. Some people call them tactics. I didn't write them. You can Google them. I picked 21 that I knew I had experience with because if I'm going to do this, I want to make sure I have examples. So I'm solid in the fact that, yes, I've been through this. Let's take criticism. Criticism is huge in toxic relationships. Okay. What are they seeking when they're criticizing you?
Validation for themselves.
The bully on the playground technique. If I can make you feel bad, I feel better. That's a power thing. And where is your attention when somebody's criticizing you?
On yourself?
No,
on
it's
them.
on them. Because
it's on them. It's on them.
Yeah. Why are they saying that? How come somebody that loves me is being so mean?
Right.
Right. And so the criticisms and the comparisons and the name calling and the belittling, those are the hardest things to get over because if you've been in it for a long time, we start believing that because, he thinks this, or she thinks this, so I better start changing it. Well, we start believing that that's how we are. And these are the things that we stick in our fanny pack and carry to the next relationship, and we believe we couldn't run a business by ourselves. And we believe nobody'd ever love us. And we believe that, we're too short and we have a big forehead or, whatever, because they said it. And so the criticisms and the tear you down traits are pretty easily understood. One of the other things that you'll see very, very heavily in a toxic relationship is crossing your boundaries. Right? Okay.
Right.
And here was the problem I ran into. It was so difficult for me to set a boundary because it would always cause conflict that I quit setting boundaries. Okay. Then everybody looks at you and goes, oh, you're a doormat, which I hate that term, by the way. But they're like, well, why don't you stand up for yourself? Well, why don't you set some boundaries? You can't even set any boundaries. That's because I've read the boundary book 3 times and I've tried everything. Right. But very simply explained, who is in control when you set a boundary?
You.
Yeah, you are. Can you please not wear your muddy shoes in the house right after I mop the floor? That's you setting a boundary. That's you taking control. Okay. In this relationship, that's not the way it works, honey. They get control. So how are they going to take control away from you after you got control setting the boundary?
They cross the boundary.
Right.
They don't let. Yeah.
Yep. It is guaranteed that in the next 48 hours, they're walking in your house with muddy shoes because they're not going to let you have that power. Right. And where's your attention when they're walking in the house with muddy shoes? On them. Okay. Yeah. Well, we're also the conflict avoiders. So if it's going to cause a fight every time we set a boundary, we'll just quit setting them because we're trying to keep the peace. So now,
oh my God,
we know they're going to walk in the house with muddy shoes. So we just wait, we roll our eyes, we wait till they leave, we clean it up. We don't say a thing, but then we get used to that and we carry the not setting boundaries outside of that relationship. And pretty soon, everybody's doing that. But I remember people telling me, you can't set any boundaries. And my mother bless her heart, she didn't understand it. She tried really hard to understand it, but she'd never been through it. So she was just trying to help.
Of course.
She sent me the boundary book 3 times in the time I was.
Mama.
And the first time I got it, I was literally like, oh my gosh, this is the answer. Like, I'm going to perfect. I read the whole thing and I was like, yeah, I already tried all that, you know, but I didn't, I knew none of this. I didn't know
Right.
what I knew now, even when I left. Now I can talk to anybody and I know exactly what they're thinking. I know exactly what they're going to do next. It's, and I accidentally learned it. One of the other things that you'll see in this type of relationship that makes us in it question it is we are actually scared of them. They like to instill fear. Now we can justify it because we're not scared of them because they never hit us, right? It's not always fear for your physical safety. It's fear of upsetting them, fear of disappointing them, fear of not being approved by them, fear of having conflict with them. If you take that, what would they be seeking if they want you a little frightened of them?
Security from you?
Yeah, they feel power when people are frightened. Think of the main dictators in history. They love that feeling if people feared them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where is your attention when you're scared of something?
On them.
Right. I always say, if you're watching a horror movie, whether the villain is in the scene or not, who are you thinking about?
The villain.
When you think about Jaws, you never one time during Jaws think, I wonder where he's at.
Wow, this is so interesting because one of the loaded questions in this area is, why do people go back?
Okay.
Right? Why don't they leave? And this is why I brought up the Vanderpump topic. So just as background, I emailed Dr. Heidi and I said, is there any objection to us talking about Vanderpump Rules? And she said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm always on the phone, obviously. Working woman who's actually working all the time. I love it, as opposed to, me who's also on social media, but it's still work. And the reason I wanted to bring it up, and I'll give you some context on what's happening, and you kind of nailed it in the beginning. There is this couple that's on a reality show, this whole friend group on a reality show, okay? Mm-hmm. 9 and some change years, this couple has been together. And now we find out that for about 7 months, the man in the relationship has been cheating on the woman with another cast member, okay? Mm-hmm. And all weekend, so many theories, so much gossip, whatever it is, has been going on, right? Today I see, Dr. Heidi, check this out. I see on TMZ, oh my God. Well, now he's going to the therapist, whatever. Here's what I see. And I just literally said to myself, are we all so toxic that we thought, let me pull it up just so you can see the title. Hang on. Where did it go? Oh my God. There's so many stories on TMZ. Okay. So it says, and the main characters here who were in the relationship for about 10 years, Tom Sandoval and Ariana Madix. Done for good. Neither wants to reconcile. Mm-hmm. Are we in a world where anyone thought that they would reconcile?
I went back 6 times.
You went back 6 times. It was one of those things where I saw the headline and I'm like, people thought that they might get back together. Are you kidding? And then I remembered all the stories of people I work with, friends I know, myself, they all go back. Everyone, not everyone, but most go back, and you cannot blame them. It is this thing that happens that, like you said, you cannot understand unless you're in it. And some of us have education with the cycle of abuse, right? But abuse, to most people, they only understand it as physical. And it's not just that. It's not the bruises on Susie, right? So explain to us, because again, I know it's a loaded question. I hate when people ask others, why didn't they leave? Why didn't you leave? Whatever. It came up in Johnny Depp and Amber Heard too. We all remember that as well. So how do you describe or make people understand, because they must come to you with that sense of shame for also not leaving.
Oh, totally. And you know what I get to say? You know what? Don't ever worry about telling me something because I did it 17 times better or worse than you did it.
There we go.
And the reason is because we don't understand it. Now, I'm going to give an explanation of what you just asked, and it might be a little bit lengthy, but if I only give half of it, it's not going to make sense because it's going to need some groundwork.
I love listening to you. Go ahead. I'm learning. I'm taking my own notes. Go ahead.
So being in a toxic relationship is like walking into a room that stinks. If you stay in the room, the smell goes away. Okay. Because you're always accommodating and you're always trying to keep them happy, things that might have felt odd to you in the beginning, the longer you're in it, it doesn't seem odd anymore. Okay. If this is kind of an off the wall example, but if you get up in the morning and they call you a name for the first time ever, you are going to get upset, right? Okay. We're going to get upset. Okay. If you get up 15 mornings in a row and they call you the same name 15 mornings in a row, do you think you're going to have the same upset reaction on the 15th day than you did on the first day?
Nope.
Okay. So that's the first step. You have to realize once it becomes normal, you don't realize, I'm pointing at my neon sign for my podcast. You don't realize it's not normal. It's toxic because now you're used to it. My girls and I would talk about stuff that went on in the house and people would look at us like we were crazy. And I remember Mesa, my oldest, she was probably 7 and she goes, "Oh no, it's okay. It happens all the time. It happens every day." And these people were like, and I didn't know any different. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's just how he is. You know, that's just how he is." And I'm sure these people were like, and so then when they hear stuff like that, they say, "Well, if it's so bad, why don't you leave?" And my response in my head only was, that is a freaking great idea because I haven't thought of that except every day in the last 15 years. Right? Okay. But it's a logical question for somebody who doesn't understand this. So I already kind of talked about the things that a toxic personality needs to feel secure. Okay. The other thing, the most important thing, and this is the part that nobody understands. The toxic personality is emotionally abusive. Okay. Everybody's heard emotionally abusive. Nobody knows what it is. They just know it's less than physical abuse, but we don't understand it because it must not be as bad and it must not damage you. That's all anybody knows. And, you know, I think people told me that they thought I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. And I thought it was, I guess I thought verbal. And I thought, yeah, he yells and screams all the time, but he does that every day. And that's just him, whatever. And what emotional abuse is if they can say or do something to get an emotional reaction out of you. Okay. Now remember, they're seeking the control and they will like the feeling of power and they love admiration and the attention because that makes them feel secure. But their ultimate goal is to be able to control how you feel by what they do and what they say. Okay. So if they can say or do something, and I'm going to write something down really quick so I don't forget this. If they can say or do something that makes you happy. Hey, I decided I want to take you on a date tonight. Your reaction is, oh, that's an emotion. You're happy. Okay. And then a half an hour later, they go, you know what? You didn't get my laundry done. I'm not taking you. Oh, now you're disappointed. Okay. Now you're sad. All they had to do was say 2 things and they made you feel something by what they said. Okay. So if they can make you happy, sad, upset, frustrated, feel guilty is the hugest one we fight with. Angry, if they can make you feel fearful, any emotion that you own, we are supposed to own our own emotions. We are allowed to feel however we want to feel, right? Okay. Right. But when someone is purposely saying or doing something to get an emotional reaction out of you, we learn how to give them the reaction they want because otherwise there's going to be conflict. Okay. The ultimate goal is for you to become completely emotionally dependent on them. And this is, again, very hard for people, sometimes even people that are in it, to understand. You know, they want to be able to say or do something to make you feel something, because if they can control your feelings, they can control your decisions, they can instill self-doubt, they can make you question yourself. You know, and because what do you hear when you try to explain your feelings? We hear stuff like, how come you're so sensitive? Or you should feel like that. Or why do you feel like that? Or what are you, hormonal? Or how come you're always overreacting? So we don't want to be hormonal or overreacting or too sensitive. So we wait to kind of get a feeling of how they think we should feel. And then that's how we act.
Right.
So for the listeners who are questioning, okay, emotional abuse, not emotional abuse, think of your relationship this way. The toxic personality is very unpredictable and they're very inconsistent. You never know what mood you're going to get in from the time they walk in the door to the time they get through the kitchen. They could totally change moods. And because you're trying to avoid conflict and keep the peace, you are always paying attention to their unpredictability and their inconsistency, because you have to be ready to keep yourself safe. You are in survival mode, trying to avoid conflict. Okay. So we are always reading how they're feeling, or we're always reading what they're doing, so we know how we're supposed to feel about something. So here's an example. If this resonates with you, you are being emotionally controlled by somebody else. It's Tuesday morning, and I'm just throwing a scenario out there. It's Tuesday morning, and I'm just doing the husband-wife thing. You're in the kitchen, you're getting stuff ready, you're packing lunches, the kids are getting ready for school, the dog's running around, the coffee's being made. It's a normal morning. Okay. You hear, and I'm not picking on males being toxic, because I have just as many male clients with, you know, toxic females. Again, we all have toxic traits. You hear him get up and he talks to the kids, and one of the kids is laughing, and you hear him talk to the dog, and, you know, he comes in the kitchen, he grabs his coffee, and he swings over and, you know, pats you on the butt and gives you a kiss on the cheek and says, have a good day at work, and he leaves. What kind of day do you have that day?
Have a great day. You have a great day.
Yeah, you have a great day.
Yeah.
Because it was in a good mood, right?
Right.
Wednesday morning, same thing. You're in the kitchen, you're packing everything ready, and you can tell the way they're walking down the stairs that they're heavier. You know, they scream at one of the kids. You hear the dog yelp, so you know the dog got kicked. They come in the kitchen, they grab their coffee, they don't say a word, they leave, slam the door. What kind of day do you have that day?
A shitty day.
A shitty, very high anxiety day.
Yes.
That is an example, just one of many. That is an example that you are being emotionally controlled by somebody. You are waiting to see what mood they're in, or how they're treating you, or how you should be feeling before you decide how you're going to feel that day. Okay. Wow. And they want us emotionally dependent on them, because then when we decide to leave or change something, all they have to do is say, I can't believe you're breaking up the family. And you immediately feel,
wow,
right?
Yes.
That's what got me back twice. I can't believe you're breaking up the family. I didn't stop for 2 seconds to go, this is not a family. I just knew with what he said, I was supposed to feel guilty. Guilt is tricky though, because we don't like to feel guilty, right?
Right.
So what's the fastest way to get rid of the feeling of guilt? Do what they want.
Just give in. Just give in to what they want.
Because at least the awful feeling of guilt is gone. Right? You know, and so their ultimate goal is to emotionally control you. Now, one of the other things that you'll see is, because we're emotionally wired, they've attracted to us because they know sooner or later they'll be able to say and do stuff that controls our emotions, right? Because if they can control our emotions and how we feel about things, we're never going to leave them, because all they're going to do is say, I can't believe you're breaking up the family, and ta-da, we're here.
Right.
So if you have anything in your life, a super supportive family, a great group of friends, hobbies that you enjoy, pets, anything that is in your life that brings you emotion. You know, you love going to the gym because it just makes you feel good about yourself. Your mom is your best friend. You call her because you're very emotionally attached to your mom. Your dog is anything that brings an emotional reaction to you is a threat to their control of your emotions. So it's called the isolation tactic.
Exactly
They
what I was
will
thinking. Yep. Yeah.
they will make it very difficult for you to see your family by saying things like, your family doesn't like me, or, I don't think that we have enough money for you to go see your family. Or when you're talking to your mom, the cows are out. The cows aren't even out. They just want you off the phone. And so eventually what we do with the hobbies that we enjoy and the family we want to see is it's easier for us to have conflict with the family and quit the hobbies than to have to fight with them every day. So we start cutting out everything that brings us emotional support. When we do that, what is the only emotional support we have?
The monster you're dating.
And they've already learned how to say and do things that can control your emotions.
Wow.
The instilling self-doubt. That starts very, very early. In the beginning, when they pretend they like everything about you, they'll say, I really like your hair long. Okay, well, you think it's a normal relationship. So it's spring and you go to get your hair trimmed and you decide, you know what? I've had the same ugly, messy bun for 8 months. I'm chopping it all off. So you cut your hair off, you go home feeling all happy and confident that you have a style. And they go, I told you, I only like your hair long. Okay, well, in the beginning, you loved it because in the beginning, you thought they just really liked your hair and you wanted to wear it the way,
right.
Wear it. Okay, what they were starting to do was they were starting to instill the fact that they want to be able to control how you wear your hair. So when you come home with short hair and they say, I told you I only like you with your hair long, the next time you go to the beauty shop, you don't go, how does Heidi want to wear her hair? You go, how do I think he wants me to wear my hair?
Okay. Yes.
So you start looking to them for your decision making. I could not order off of a menu when I left. And he wasn't telling me what to order. He would say, how come you're having chicken? Or don't you think that's too expensive? So here I am. I'm 35 years old. I'm watching what he orders. I'm watching the price point. Are we having cocktails or is it water? And then I would order something I didn't even want, hoping he wouldn't criticize it. And honestly, because they like criticism to get power, they're going to criticize it no matter what it is. And when I met the man, yes, I am remarried. I've been married to the best man on the planet for me for 11 years in September.
Congratulations. I love hearing that.
Yes, I call him my hot husband. That's how everybody knows him. I love him to death. He actually saved my life because I met him right at the end of the 2 years. And I didn't know I was in love with him. I talked to him one night on the phone and I thought, whether it's him or not, this makes me see that there's hope and there might be something better out there. And that's really what started getting me emotionally detached. I can talk till Tuesday.
I love that.
The other thing that we have to understand is they're not going to go away until you make them go away.
Okay. So this is what I wanted to ask you, and not to cut you off, but I want to make sure we talk about this. So what does take as much time as you want. What does the healing journey look like? How do you avoid these relationships in the future?
Okay. I take a lot of responsibility when I work with people, and I take private clients. And actually tomorrow I'm launching my community because my private client I'm full. And my mission was to help as many as I can. And I had to figure out a way to do that.
I love that. Tell us about that community, because a lot of listeners first started listening to me because I'm a family law attorney. So a lot of them have always thought, they just felt really alone. Right. So now we're seeing a lot of these resources, but to have someone who has experience in providing these resources is really, really valuable. So tell us more about that.
So one of the reasons that I had to figure something out is no matter where my clients are in their journey, I work with people from the ones who are still Googling how to be a better wife or how to be a better husband, all the way up to the ones who are now just trying to figure out what their value system is because they gave it up. So I work with the ones that are just learning, the ones that are in it, the ones that are trying to get out of it. I walk through divorce processes with them. I go through the co-parenting thing with them and into into the self-discovery. So when I have somebody come to me, I always take myself and I put myself right back where they are now. Because that way I know what they're feeling. I know what their fears are. I know what their struggles are. And that's where we start. But regardless of where they are on that whole part of the journey, they need to understand the relationship for what it really was, because they will still come out of it thinking it was my fault. I need to change. I need to do better. I'm always going to be a failure. Nobody's ever going to love me. And when I show them, no, you never had a fighting chance, because it wouldn't have mattered how good you were. They would have changed the rules and moved the goalposts, because that kept their, the attention on them. I have clients 50, 55 years old, and I'll ask them, what makes you happy? And they'll go, I have no idea. And then I'll say, what's your favorite color? And more often than not, they'll say, I have no idea. He always wanted me to wear blue. Okay, if we are 53 years old and you don't know what your color is, you have learned that you making decisions is detrimental and causes conflict. So you quit making decisions and you're letting somebody else make them. Because the toxic personality knows if you can't make small decisions, you will never make a big decision to change the dynamic of the relationship and sneak out from underneath their control.
Oh my God, I have chills.
So the healing journey is acknowledging that you understand the way the toxic personality works. Now, I teach everybody the same thing, because if you're my personality, you need it if you're in it. If you're in it, you need it if you're out of it. You need it if you're dating, right? In 2021, I don't keep a lot of statistics on my clients, but for some reason, I had 3 or 4 people like within the same week tell me kind of the same story. And so I kept track. I had 9 women in 2001 that hired me as a private coach. And every single one of them story kind of went, I've been listening to your podcast. My kids are teenagers. I am not ready to leave now. Can you at least give me enough information that I understand this so I can make it till my kids are 18 and then I'm going to leave? Yeah, of course. I'm going to teach you the same thing, whether, wherever you are. And every single one of those 9 women filed for divorce within 6 months of working with me. And the only reason is once they saw it, they couldn't unsee it. And I remember them going, you have got to be kidding me. This is so easy. I'm not doing this one more day in my life. But because we're the emotional people, we don't even think to look at the way they see it, because we're so busy in survival mode. Okay, if he says this, I'm going to do this. If she says this, I'm going to do that. And we have a plan A and a plan B for everything, which is why we don't know what makes us happy, and which is why we don't know what favorite color, what's our favorite color, because we don't have time to put attention on ourselves. If we do, we're taught that self-care is selfish. Right. So we spend all our attention on them. I have to teach people to put attention back on themselves. And that is very hard. We leave those feeling like we're crazy and we're nuts. And now we're, post-traumatic stress, and we're, because we get told everything. So you leave that relationship scared of everything. You feel like you can't trust. You feel like you don't dare date. You feel like you're going to be alone for the rest of your life. And when I explain to them, once you understand this, you don't have to worry about trusting anybody but yourself. You need to find your identity so solid that if you meet somebody that has a red flag, you can say, you know what, if I never see you again, so what? And me, that's how I ended up married. I didn't want to go on the first date. I knew there was something about him I didn't like, but after he asked me out 7 times, I started feeling bad. I started feeling guilty, and I didn't believe, okay, fine, we'll go out. And about that, I went on a second date, and I was pregnant, and I was married, and I was pregnant again. And we had a ranch, and we had an office, and then there I sit, and I'm completely invested. And then how am I supposed to leave? And but it's so 100% clear to me. And I take what made it clear to me, and that's what I present people with, because this isn't something that's wrong with you. This is something that happened to you. They chose you because of your personality, and they spent the years you were with them programming you to respond the way they needed you to, so they felt better and they felt secure. So all we need to do is reprogram. And it's such a slow drip that you don't realize it until I looked in the mirror one day. And if you guys can see me, you can definitely tell I'm not blonde, right? I looked in the mirror one day and I remember thinking, I have no idea who you are. Okay. I don't know if you can tell, I'm pretty extroverted. I'm pretty loud. I'm very social. I'm the first one on dancing on the bar.
And so pretty. You're so pretty.
Oh, thank you.
And your arms, like, please just go on YouTube just to see Dr. Heidi's arms. They're perfect. Like, those are my dream arms.
They are not perfect, but I will admit,
perfect.
Part of my healing was when I started having negative thoughts, I did push-ups. However, I also, now this has a story behind it. So when I say this, don't be like, oh, she said that. Okay. Because I'm like the worst bragger on the planet.
Okay.
I have my pro card in figure. Okay. Mm-hmm. That is because when I was with the man that I'm married to now, I was married to him for 2 years, and he's a ex buck and horse rider. My whole family rodeoed. My daughter's barrel race, and he said to me, I love it that you like to come to the rope and pin and you like to run the chute and work the cows and you go get hay with me. And I love that. But you don't have to do that. I know that in your former relationship, you were expected to be right there. So he knew where you were and he knew what you were doing and your attention was on him. And I want you to know that I want you to be independent. I want you to have your own friends and I want you to have your own hobbies. And he said, still, I love it when you're with me. You can be with me anytime you want, but I'm going to challenge you. And I want you to pick a hobby by Friday. Okay.
I love hot husband.
That's like asking me what my favorite color is, right?
Oh.
And I thought, and I went through, I stopped every hobby that I had when I was with my former because he hated it. Or, I had a candle company that gave him headaches and it's just easier for you to quit. And so I went through all those that I used to enjoy and they were still way too triggering for me. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't decide what to try. And then I was very insecure, but I could do yoga, but what if I'm bad at it and the people in there don't like me and what are they going to think? And I was still doing all of this kind of thing. So I get to Friday and he says, well, what's your hobby? And I go, I don't know. And he goes, well, the first time I talked to you, you told me that you always wanted to bodybuild. And I remember going, I did? He goes, yeah. So if you haven't found a hobby, why don't you look into that? And just start it. And if you find another one, you can quit.
Amazing.
Okay. So for somebody who has been criticized her whole entire life and picked apart, and now I'm going to do this and do a show. So I thought, okay, it's now or never. You're going to have to do something gutsy to get yourself over this. I hired a trainer out of California, never talked to her on the phone. I did everything over the internet. I stepped in the gym for the first time since high school in my life at 42 years old.
Wow.
6 months later, I did my first show and I placed in every class.
Oh my gosh. And that's where those arms come from.
Yeah.
A healthy relationship and some bodybuilding.
Yes. And now here's the thing. I did set a goal. I'm somebody that if I set a goal, I'll get it. If there's not a goal out there, I'm just going to the gym every day. Right.
I love it.
So I set a goal that I would get my pro card. Well, I competed for 2 years. I ended up getting my pro card. That was the same time this business was starting. And I did not mind the workout. I did not mind the meal plan, which is most people like. I did not love being on stage, which is what most people like. I remember standing up there going, what in the hell are you doing up here? You're so out of place. But it was so good for me to push myself to do that. But then when I decided, I wanted to start this business, I really looked at it. I'm not helping anybody being in the gym 2 times a day. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to quit competing. And it entered my life when I needed a lesson and I needed something and I really enjoyed it. Nope. I don't really tell anybody very often that I did it, but I love telling the story that my husband pushed me to do it.
Yes. I don't think you need to tell anyone. The arms, I think, speak for themselves.
No, I'm not competing anymore. So sometimes I feel like the estrogen is
oh no, you're so cute. You are so smart. Tell everyone where they can find you and how to connect with you to get to your community.
Okay. And I know I always overtake everybody's podcast. I apologize. I just get so passionate about this. I always have to say,
you are here because it is very obvious that you are living in your purpose. These people hear my voice all the time. They don't need it. They want the episode with Dr. Heidi is about Dr. Heidi. Okay.
Well, and I always say, I didn't pick this mission. This mission
chose
picked me.
you.
I think the Lord said, you're going to be a chiropractor for 25 years while I train you for your real job.
Yep.
And I always think, well, it would have been nice if you told me, because I would have paid way better attention. I would have taken notes. But, as it goes, people always ask me, what do you regret? What would you go back and do? You know what? I would never want to go through it again. But I am 100% grateful that I have, because the people that I get to meet, this is the best job I've ever had. Now I'm getting tears in my eyes, so I'm going to have to change the subject. But I definitely, this was definitely in my path. So my website is Coaching with Dr. Heidi. I named it that because sometimes we have to be discreet. And so anything else would have red flagged. So Coaching with Dr. Heidi, I run a support group on Facebook. That's a free one. It's private. I started it thinking, we'll get a few people in here, and there's almost 6,000 people. So if you're looking,
oh my gosh,
if you're looking for a place that you're looking to be understood, it's called Strength Within. The picture is a white flower growing out of a gray rock, because there's more than one group called Strength Within. However, I am pretty strict on my rules in there, because this is an encouraging, supportive. We do not bash. We do not, hash play-by-play things, because all of that type of stuff, everybody in there has already been through it. And once people realize that's how it is a very calm place to be. Sometimes we have to tell the new people, which is okay, because everybody's in their own spot. But once people realize it is safe in there, and they don't get criticized, they don't have to worry that people don't understand them. So that is a great opportunity if you're looking for a support group. I do take private clients. I always do an initial consultation, because if I'm going to write an exit plan and I'm going to help you, I really need to know a lot about your situation. So I always do a intro. But tomorrow, like I mentioned, I am launching the We're in It Together community. And in it it's not normal, it's toxic. And I am actually going to be going through the same thing I go through with my private clients. However, private coaching, as everybody knows, can get expensive. A lot of my people are being financially abused. They don't have access to the money, right. And so I've made it very affordable. I'll be teaching online once a week. There's all sorts of benefits for being in there. You can find that on the top of my website, but the first meeting is tomorrow. You can join and you can leave at any time you want. I think it's going to be fantastic. I'm super excited about it. I just got to decide what I'm going to wear.
I know that it's going to be a hit, because this is something clients have asked me for. It's something that I thought of doing, and now I know why I never did it, because you were supposed to do this work and you're so good at it. You're so smart, so empowering. If your daughters have not told you, you are an incredible role model.
Well,
wow.
They tell me all the time. And I carried a lot of guilt for leaving them, because really, and of course, he got to tell his own story. I was just a floozy that met another floozy and left him holding the bag with the kids. And I decided not to defend myself. I let him tell whatever story he wanted. But I've carried a lot of guilt. And a couple of years ago, we rented an Airbnb and we went somewhere, and they said, "Mom, you're not allowed to feel guilty anymore." If you would not have left, they truly believed either all of us would still be there, or one of us would not be here anymore. It was getting that bad, and they're great, and they understand it. They're still a pain in my ass. I'll tell you.
Listen, they're still your daughters, and obviously they are also healers just like you.
Yes, and in fact, my youngest was just a few weeks ago finally on the podcast, and she talks about how she saw the relationship when she was little, and she said stuff on that podcast she never told me.
Oh my gosh. I need to go listen to it. I already subscribed. I'm so excited. The title alone, it's not normal. It's toxic. That is so good. You are everything. So relatable, so easy to understand. And I'm so honored that you are on this episode of our podcast. Thank you so much, Dr. Heidi.
Well, I am honored to be on it. I knew this one was going to be fun. And I told you, because everything said, she's really funny. And I thought, perfect.
Well, you're really funny and you're really smart. And I'm so happy we had you. Thank you so much again.
Yes, you're welcome.
You're the best.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed on this podcast are not legal advice that can be relied on. They are based solely on the limited information provided. These opinions do not create any attorney-client relationship. Those seeking legal advice should contact an attorney in the appropriate jurisdiction and practice area.